After I wrote my book, You Are a Warrior, I would have people that read it that knew me would always tell me, man, it's almost like I could hear your voice as I'm reading it, right? Because they knew me. They knew how I talked. They knew kind of the inflections that I would use when I would pause, how I'd maybe search for words, whatever the case may be. But as they're reading my book, they could actually hear me in their head reading it to them as if I was talking to them. This is the Warrior Podcast, episode 188. And let's talk about listening to the Spirit. Now, this morning, on the way here, I always try to just let the Lord give me what it is I'm going to talk about. I've talked about that before. I just pray, Holy Spirit, give me something. Like, I don't want to go in here and just come up with a preconceived, bullet points or talking point. I don't plan it out at all. Don't plan out what I'm going to say. Don't write it out. Just go for it and just hope for the best. And just trust that whatever word is going to come, that he wants to come. And so back to my point. So as I'm sitting here about to hit go, I was like, I just need to listen to the Spirit. I was like, well, hey, let's talk about listening to the Spirit. And then immediately the verse, I want to say it's in John 10, the Gospel of John 10, when Jesus talks about how he's the good shepherd and his sheep can hear his voice. And so if we're his sheep of his pasture, we need to be able to hear his voice, and we can differentiate his voice from other voices in the world, because there's a lot of voices. I talked about that before. And so we need to make sure that we're toning them down and listening in for what he has to say. Now, that sounds great. I mean, man, you should do that. I should do that. But what does that look like? I don't know about you, but I got a contempt a little bit for that type of advice. It's like, hey, man, you just need to listen to the Lord. And it makes it sound like somebody's so, in tune with what they should be doing. So I don't want to be that guy. So here's how I'm going to tell you, I feel that we listen to the Spirit practically, specifically listen to the Spirit. Very similar to what I just said about my people that know me reading my book and understanding, hey, man, I heard your voice as you're reading this. It's almost as if you were reading it to me in my head. See, that's the thing, is that sheep know the commands, the tonality of their shepherd, because they listen to him, they hear him as he directs them. How does God do that with us? Once again, through reading the scriptures. You can't get around that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think there's this push, maybe not push, but there's this thing where it's like when you come to Christ, there's not this push on you or weight put on you on other people to get into his word. We say it, but it's like, no, you must, because how are you going to hear his voice over those that are around you? If you know me and you hear me talk all the time, when you see something written by me, you're going to go, yeah, I think George wrote that. Or that doesn't sound like him. No, he wrote it. I'm having a hard time believing that. The same as of God. If a movement or a voice from the Spirit comes, you're not going to run off and do that if you understand that there's no way he would ever tell you to do that. And the only way that you would ever know that he would not tell you to do that is if you're in his word. Impossible. Well, I don't like to read, so listen to it. Well, I don't like, so read it. Well, the excuses are going to come. I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? Make time. And this is not me sitting in judgment. This is encouragement. I want to encourage you to listen to the Spirit. See, the Holy Spirit's going to bring the word that you've implanted in your heart to the surface, and you can hear it, and then you can make decisions on it. And if you're not hearing that voice, if it's not coming up and bubbling up, it's probably because you didn't put anything in there. He's the Spirit of truth. Jesus said he will guide you into all truth. He will remind you. He will remind you of the things that I said, he told his disciples. Well, if you never heard what he said, how's it supposed to remind you? All right, guys, listen. Sometimes we need a little bit of a rap across the beak, right? I need it. And this to me, I'm saying, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. All right, guys, you're a warrior designed for God's glory. Get into his word. Sharpen the sword by reading and studying and rightly dividing the word of truth so you may hear the commands of your king and go out and accomplish the missions, tasks, objectives he's given you. All right, God be with you. Stay in the fight. We'll see you next time. Peace.